And live from the Scheinfeld Center Innovator Studio at Santa Barbara City College, it's the Enlightened Entrepreneur Podcast, where we inform and inspire Gen Z to become even more entrepreneurial and innovative in our global economy. I'm your host, Julie Sampson, Director of the Scheinfeld Center, and welcome everybody. How are you doing this week? I hope everything is going well on your entrepreneurial journey. I'm so excited that you're here for this third of 7 podcast series where we're going over some of the typical points where aspiring entrepreneurs get stuck. And our hope is that this can help your journey be a little bit smoother. You know, we meet here every Friday with guests from around the world. And so we really hope that you'll become a regular with our growing community. If you're into creating your livelihood, being your own boss, making the world an even better place, that's what we're about. And so don't be a stranger, join us. And go ahead and comment in the chat. And we want to hear from you. We're better together for sure. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into our topic today. So just stepping back, in the first and second episodes of this series, we discussed how to come up with business ideas and then how to test those ideas. And so if you haven't watched those videos, I'll link them here. And I really suggest that you go back and take a look at them because we give you simple frameworks for doing just that. And this video will take you through prototyping and testing so that you can bring your product or service to market using design thinking as a framework. Design thinking is a creative process for problem solving, and you can apply the 5 stages of design thinking to create in-demand products and services. With design thinking, what's really unique about it is that you involve your prospective customers in the design process. And that's so important because we know that the number one reason that startups fail is that there's no market need. Nobody's buying. And that's totally avoidable with design thinking and market validation for customer-centric development of products and services. You end up creating a must-have rather than a nice-to-have or something that your customers just don't want to have, and they will love you and buy from you and share, the great experience that they're having with their product or service with their friends and family, to help boost your sales. So as an overview, there's 5 steps to design thinking: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And just as a quick note, while today we'll be using an example of a physical product, this design thinking process applies to service-based businesses as well. So if you're hoping to bring a service to market, the way that you can think of your product is as your customer journey. So your customers come to you with a certain problem, you take them through a certain process, and they arrive at the other end with that ideal experience that they're looking for. So you can think of that as your product. So as we go through the process today, when we're talking product, just think of that about your service. And so then that way, this will be applicable to you as well. So with all of that, joining us to break this all down is Gen Z graphic artist, apparel designer, product designer, do-it-yourself inventor, and of course, entrepreneur, Hans Does. Hans lives by the mantra, just go and make it. His roots in the surf industry molded his design approach to create for the end consumer with a fearless jump in and get it done mentality. Hans continues to grow his brand Tentacle, his own patented product, which he has brought to market purely DIY and considers this his MBA. His Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and pre-order campaign brought in roughly $172,000 total and landed the campaign in the top 1% of Kickstarter campaigns at the time. Hans, welcome to the podcast. I can't think of a better person to be here to share insights about design thinking and prototyping. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I love being here. Yeah, super excited to share.
Well, great. Your accomplishments in the design and entrepreneurship are so impressive. And let's go ahead and get our audience up to speed and kind of connected with you and understanding who you are. So maybe let's just start at the beginning. When did you first recognize within yourself that you're an entrepreneur?
I think it was when I saw someone wearing something that I made for the first time in the wild. I think to me, it struck a chord that, wow, it's really cool that you can make something that came from your brain and someone else can appreciate it, whether it's just by wearing a piece of clothing or actually using a tool that you came up with or a toy, whatever it is, having that slight impact on people. That was important to me. And so I felt like I became an entrepreneur kind of by default because I wanted to make cool stuff that people enjoyed. And the best way to do that for me was to go and make them myself and start a business. So that's my journey as far as becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And so now fast forward and you're deeply involved now with Tentacle. So
Mhm.
how do you describe Tentacle?
So Tentacle, best way to describe it, it's an octopus mount for all your tech. So it's bendable legs and suction cups, which we patented. Kind of crazy that we actually patented the octopus in a way, which is kind of funny. But it's bendable legs and suction cups that wrap, bend, and suction, so you can mount your phones, cameras, tablets anywhere, uh, whether you're hanging it on something, wrapping it around your bike mount in your car, or car mount, I'm sorry. You can use it as a bike mount. You can use it as a selfie stick, a tripod, a stand. It basically combines everything into one great little product that does it all. So
It's amazing. How did you come up with that idea?
kind of funny. So my girlfriend and I at the time, now my wife, we would go on hikes and we'd always forget to bring a selfie stick or a tripod. It's a phone. You're not really thinking of bringing a tripod with you, but we'd always want to get a nice shot at the end of the hike. And so we do the classic prop your phone up against a tree branch or against a rock, try and take a picture. And it never worked. And there's one day in particular where put it up on a tree branch, phone falls onto the rocks below, cracks the
Oh,
screen, and so walked to the car after the hike, got a broken phone, and I put my broken phone on my car mount because we're driving away from our hike. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this dumb bulky car mount, why couldn't that also just, I could have used that as my tripod, but it wasn't designed to be that. So I felt a need to have this sort of third hand that you can use as your car mount, also as your tripod, so it's just always with you. And that was the original idea where it came from. Once we actually prototyped it, we realized, hey, this thing does a lot more than just a car mount and a tripod. So yeah, that's how it came about.
okay. And so then you have your idea. And so now we can go into the design thinking process, and the first stage of design thinking is empathize. So you have an idea, but you need to find out, do other people have this problem? Like, does my target market, like who I think has the problem, do they actually have it? And if they do have the problem, are there already alternatives on the market that they're using that address that problem? If there are people that have the problem, is there enough people that have that problem that there could be a viable business out of it? And so this is, if you watch our previous video, this is the problem customer discovery test that we talked about at that point. Hans, before you even prototype Tentacle, how did you find out if others had this problem and if this could be a viable business, perhaps?
It was really just kind of asking friends and coworkers. It wasn't necessarily asking if they had the problem. I kind of already had the idea for the solution, and I went to them just as friends and as family, just thinking, hey, would this be helpful to you? Would it be helpful if your car mount could also do this? And being in the industry that I was in the surf industry, everyone's very active. It's a very active lifestyle. So uh, it definitely was a tool that a lot of them found that could be useful. So that was enough for me to kind of get going, was think, hey, will other people find this useful? And then for me personally, I found it to be useful that I didn't have to I didn't have to rely on a different product to do a different thing for every little scenario I needed to do. So um, again, like car mount, or having a bike mount for your phone, or a tripod, all these different things. It was kind of a cool idea to be able to combine everything into one platform uh, that did everything. So
Yeah.
yep.
So much multitasking capability. Yeah, amazing. Once you have an idea that demonstrates some potential, you get some feedback from potential customers, your potential target market, that this could be useful, then it's time to really move into the define stage. And that's the second stage of design thinking. And define is really where you take that information that you gathered during the empathize stage. So everything that you heard from people that you talked about, your own ideas, you bring that together and you define the problem that you're going to solve. And that's so important, because if we move on to brainstorming and we're not really focused on what problem we're trying to solve, we can get off track, from what we're trying to do. And we're trying to design, to make the customer's life better, and so if we get off track with it, it's a problem. So the way we get around that is to define the problem that we're trying to solve. So Hans, how did you define the problem that you were trying to solve with Tentacle?
So it's funny, I actually got there by, first came the idea, and then it turned into, okay, what are we really doing here with this product? Uh, what I found is that social media was becoming such a big, this was when social media was really starting to take off. And there's so many people that are creating content, and content creation doesn't happen with a big DSLR camera anymore. Our little pocket device is almost just as powerful, and it's way more convenient. And with social media, everyone was kind of becoming a content creator. So really the biggest solve for me was to have a product that helps content creators do what they need to do, help capture the content that they're trying to capture, while also having this same product that's helping them capture content easier, do all these other things, and allow people to consume content easier as well. I use it even just in bed, just lying on my phone, and I just mount it on my chest and I have it there and I can scroll, and you have a mount. So the idea, who I was trying to solve for was the casual content creator. There's plenty of tripods out there already, plenty of selfie stick things, but having one device that kind of did it all and was casual, that's ultimately what I was trying to solve. So a simple product that was easy to use and that anyone can pick up and be able to capture content easily, but also use it because they needed it for their car mount, or they needed it for their bike or their tablet, whatever other scenario. Yeah, so.
One of the things that is so great about that is the target market that you focused on, so you really focused on who are the people who are having a pain point with this. And I think that's really an important part of bringing a product or service to market, is really focusing on the target market that is most likely to buy, most likely having the problem and having it every day,
Right.
because then they're really motivated to buy. Okay, so then once we go, we've gotten through the define stage, then the next stage, or the third stage of design thinking, is ideate. The goal here is to brainstorm potential solutions that could solve the customer's problem, and then you choose what seems to be the best solution for prototyping. And so, Hans, what process did you go through to brainstorm potential solutions and arrive at a solution to prototype?
So it's funny, I actually thought of the marketability of the product before I thought of the engineering and how the product would actually look. And I've always been inspired by the ocean. And I thought it'd be really cool if there was a product that was interesting to look at just as much and play with, just as much as it is a tool to solve a problem. So it actually kind of stems from the marketability of what the product may look like and how it could work on a novelty level. In this case, octopus was my inspiration. And I kind of reverse engineered from there to get to that ideation of what this product is actually going to look like. It could have been some blocky thing with, different attachments on it. I actually had a case idea with this slide-on case that you can attach different things to, and that would be the solution. But I felt like just one cool novelty product that helps sell itself because it's so interesting to look at and interesting to play with. That's actually where I reversed went from the marketability of the product just purely out of aesthetic and playfulness, and then tried to merge the two worlds of how is this going to solve a problem physically and how is this going to be a good marketable product. So that's actually where the idea of this tentacle-esque type of product, that's really where it came from. And then from there, you can dive into all the interesting things like it being a unibody design, how it's engineered and all that. So yeah, that's really.
That's so great because really what you brought into the whole ideating process was, what do you want the customer experience to be? You created this thing where it would be fun to use, and instead of just
Customer first. Yeah.
yeah, just instead of like just purely technical, like what would really delight customers and really be uplifting and fun to use.
Right, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
You start with the end experience and then work back from there.
Yeah, really nice. So the next stage, the fourth stage of design thinking is then prototyping. And so this is where the solution begins to come into physical reality as a prototype. So it can start simply as drawings at first, and then you move on to inexpensive, scaled down versions of the product or service that you want to bring into to market. And so that's what a prototype is, just a scaled down version that gets you hands on with it, so that ultimately you can get this in front of customers so that you can get their feedback on it, before you go into the whole, manufacturing ends of things, so that you can go back and you make revisions on it, tweak things if you need to. This goes along with the testing stage of design thinking, which is the final fifth stage. You design something and test it out and, design and test. So how did this go for you, the progression from your first physical prototype up to your working and go-to-market product?
Yeah, it was fun. I'll just start there. It was really fun. I like to create things, so it was fun to try new things that I'd never done before. Ultimately, so I started with a drawing, like you're saying, and just drew on paper. And at the time, I was living at my parents' house, and I had a clay. I went to the art store. I bought some clay, and to get just some minimum viable thing, I actually handmade with clay sort of what I was thinking it could be, and I cast a mold of that. So my product in particular, because it's a physical product, and it's a bendable product, it was really hard to find a material that worked for what I was trying to do. So in this specific product, I had to mold a soft thing with a metal-y thing inside of it and get some suction cups in there somehow. So it was so janky. I actually have the very first prototype right here. I don't know if anyone is going to be seeing it visually, but you can see it is pretty rough. But this is what I needed. Something that just showed me physically what it is. Here, I'll compare it with one today. So this is actually how it looks today. This is actually our new one we're about to drop. This is Tentacle 360. So from this which is an absolute messy looking thing, but it helped us get the idea down and see it bend and see it work and have the suction cups, to this is what we sell today. So yeah, it's kind of fun. And I actually have a whole bag of plenty of other in-between stages, and there's many more where that came from. But really, it was just, let's get creative. Let's figure out what is the minimum ugliest looking. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just get something that we can kind of get the idea further along. And in this early stage of prototyping, I feel like it's more about the encouragement of seeing a physical product sometimes, like seeing something that you made that's like, then it just sparks a little bit more like, oh, maybe it could be like this, or maybe this. And if you just start with something, in this case, I literally hand molded with clay to get this goofy shape. Oh, it's actually stuck. And then I put wire inside and molded it around. It was an absolute mess. But, and this goes with clothing, anything. You got to get something, even if it's just folding paper, to kind of get a concept down. Yeah, just get something in your hand that you can use. And then after that, I went ahead and learned some 3D design programs. I use a program called Rhino 3D, and that was because the shape of this product is so organic, it needed to be something that can model very organic shapes. There's a lot of other great programs out there. SketchUp, I use SketchUp quite a bit as well. But getting something in 3D, it doesn't take that long to learn a program. And I use Google to just watch YouTube videos on how to, how do I make this click to that? And being a graphic designer, maybe having some experience already in some programs helped, but you just dealt the tools that you're given and you figure it out. And with YouTube, it was really easy to kind of learn those programs. So once I had a 3D program, I actually was in the mall, and there was a 3D print shop that was printing faces. So you can get a 3D scan of your face, and then they'll print it there on site. You can come back a couple hours later and get a little figurine of yourself. So I went to them and I said, hey, would you guys like 3D print a file if I gave it to you? And they said, sure, why not? And so they were actually printing my 3D printed molds that I was prototyping. So yeah, it went from doing the clay models into an actual 3D CAD design that I was then 3D printing and then casting molds from the 3D prints. Kind of fun.
Oh man, there's so many things I love about your story. I mean, one is you're demonstrating that resourceful aspect of being an entrepreneur. If you weren't in the mindset of design, you may have gone into the mall and seen the 3D printer and not, hooked the two together. But it's just, because you were in that design mindset, you were able to recognize the opportunity there. That's really fun how you work that out. And the other thing is, I always share with our students here, taking the entrepreneurship courses, if you're not kind of embarrassed by your first prototype, you probably overworked it too much.
Exactly. You spent too much money. That's totally and even our first production products, we just needed a minimum viable product just to get something going. But our Kickstarter product, our first one, I'm even embarrassed about it today, but that's what we shipped to our customers. Granted, that was the best thing that we can come up with at the time, but it just wasn't quite there yet. So now we're on version number 4, which is awesome, but just keep iterating and making tweaks in that prototyping phase, especially. And this product in particular was really difficult because it needed to have a malleable metal core, which is what we use a special. So we had to test different materials and do all that. But ultimately, yeah, it's just, I have a phrase that I say with my buddy. We built a tiki bar the other day just because we've been talking about having a tiki bar in our backyard. And finally he came over, we actually built it, and we kept saying the tiki bar ain't gonna build itself, but it applies to, creating your invention, creating your product. The tiki bar ain't gonna build itself. You gotta start somewhere and start building something. Even if it's a janky little product that, isn't near what you want it to be, you just gotta do it, gotta get started doing something. And yeah, I just kept going with it. And now I have a pretty cool product that sells pretty good.
So amazing. Tell us how Kickstarter and Indiegogo, it all came into, the process here. So you had your concept at a certain level before you did your campaigns, right? And then
Yeah.
kind of how did the process go from there?
So at the point where I was ready to actually start a product and sell a product, I had been using the prototypes with friends and family. And there was something so cool about when anyone who used the product would have a different use case for it. And that, to me, that was so cool to see them have this discovery moment with the product. I just felt like the product was going to be a hit at some point because of the way that people were interacting with it and how they were finding their own uses for it and how they were actually using it. I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not actually made some prototypes. But then once it got to a certain phase, I realized I'm not going to be able, these prototypes are too ugly. I'm pouring these things in my garage. I'm 3D printing and vacuum chamber molds and degassing things. And it was like a little science lab, but they were always coming out kind of ugly. And I didn't feel like if I launched a Kickstarter with these prototypes, it would do all that great because it looks pretty ugly. So I ended up taking the risk and getting some production prototypes made. And I actually got a loan, and I wouldn't recommend this to everyone. It ended up paying off for me. It's kind of a gamble to do, but I ended up deciding that the only way that this is going to work for this product in particular, other products typically like a backpack or something else that you can sew together, it's not a molded product like this one was. A 3D print you can get a lot further with, but that's a hard product where this product needed to be soft and flexible. So the only real way I could get it to explain the product and make a great video out of is if I had an actual production sample. So I ended up getting some financing to finance this first part of it. And what I did with that is made an awesome video with my friend, the same one who we built the tiki bar together. But we shot the video, we showed all the different use cases they could do. We edited this really cool video together. And by putting up a little bit more risk in having a better version of the prototype that we can actually sell to a customer. And in Kickstarter, Indiegogo, you're not asking for their money. You're basically pre-selling a product that you're going to promise that you're going to deliver on. And in doing that, they need to see it's going to be a good product. Otherwise, they're probably not going to buy it. So went ahead and risked it and did that. And the great thing about it is that we already had the molds ready. We were ready to run production. So we launched at the end of August of 2017, and we promised to be able to ship by the holidays for the holiday gifting season. And we did it. And some customers, it was crazy. We were shipping, it was an absolute hectic mess, but we actually got it done. And we got people their products by the date that we said.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it was really cool that we did it that way. And we did it, this was made in America at the time. We're actually manufacturing in China now, but at the time it was made in US. So it was easier, we didn't have to wait for things to ship by freight. We could just get them from our factory, which wasn't even that far from us. It was in San Diego. We were also in San Diego at the time. So yeah, that's how we did it.
Wow. I love that entrepreneurial story of calculated risk, taking calculated risk, right?
I wouldn't recommend that to everyone, but it was very much calculated. And I knew if it didn't work out, I could still fund it myself if I had to. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Hey, well, Hans, we have a question from the audience. The question is, did your sales increase or decrease since the pandemic started?
Very good question. It's wild because most of the business is actually e-commerce based, and e-commerce has definitely expanded over COVID. So as you know, much of a struggle this has been for everyone, we did see a boost in sales. I think a lot more people had more time, especially early on during the quarantine. People were just sitting like I was, just sitting at home on your phone or just trying to find something to do. And yeah, so it actually did increase for us during this time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's so great. Well, Hans, I could go on, we could go on for a long time, but we're out of time right now. I'm sure that our listeners would love to be able to contact you. What's the best way for them to do that?
Have them email me at hans@tentacle.com. It's my first name and then our business. I would love to help anyone else, get their dream started. And I did write a book called the D.I.Y Inventor Kit. It's more of an ebook. It's just something that I did to kind of reflect on this experience. But I will send them a copy for free if they email me.
Wow, that is so incredibly generous of you. Thank you so much. And one of the things I love about entrepreneurs is they're so willing to help people who are following in their footsteps, bringing their own products and services to market. So thank you so much for that generosity of yours. And to our listeners, just to sum up, as far as design thinking goes, we have the 5 steps: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And this is all a creative design process that you include your customers in to make sure that you create in-demand products and services. Be sure to join us next Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific, where we'll be here again, bringing our next episode designed to help you past some of the quagmires that aspiring entrepreneurs can get caught in. And if you like what we're doing, please like, share, and subscribe. Also, connect with us via Instagram, and please tune in to our Instagram, because we're going to do a giveaway during the week, and so you want to check that out. Thank you so much, Hans. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I had a great time. Thank you so
Such
much.
a pleasure. Yeah, and thank you, everybody. Wishing you the best week on your entrepreneurial journey, and we'll see you next week then. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.